Congratulations on your purchase of Spenard Builder Supply Caribou Cabin Kit. This kit is built and designed to put up in a single weekend with a small crew of 3. While some basic knowledge of construction is required, this video will act as a basic guide to help you while you construct your cabin. The most important part of any building is getting a square, level, and plumb foundation under your cabin. Whether you use timbers, blocks, or I-beams, a good foundation determines whether the project will be easy or difficult. You will have to trim panels if the foundation is larger than your kit, so be sure to get the foundation square and level. Pier blocks with adjustable saddles help level the 3 20-foot pressure-treated 4x8s we use for our demo cabin. The 16 by 20 diagonal measurement should be about 306 inches. This may vary slightly, but both diagonals must be even. The floor joists are pre-cut to 15 feet 9 3/4 inches, so the rims make an even 16-foot wide cabin and are laid out on 24-inch centers. Double-check measurements of the rim joists and trim if necessary. Attach the rim board to the floor joist using 2.5-inch screws. If using nails, use an 8D. If you will be insulating the floor, install fiberglass bats and apply vapor barrier to top of floor joist prior to installation of floor sheathing. Once the floor joists are in place, it's time to lay the first full sheet of floor sheathing. Apply PL400 subfloor adhesive prior to installation of each sheet. Start in the corner of your floor with the tongue side overhanging to be trimmed later. Continue installing sheathing end to end while mating tongue and groove on subsequent rows. Use a sledgehammer and a 2x4 beater block that spans at least 2 floor joists to drive the sheets together. Finally, nail off the sheathing with a minimum 8D nails or 2-inch wood screw at 6 inches on center along the rim board and where panel edges meet, and 12 inches on center everywhere else. Be sure to trim the tongue where it was left to overhang so it will not interfere with the wall placement. Now that you have the floor installed, it's time to lay out your wall guides. Snap guidelines 5 1/2 inches from the outside all the way around your cabin floor. This will be the inside location of your wall panels. You may also want to mark on the floor which panels you want to go where for door and window placement. That's a big help if your crew is really fast at putting up panels. Don't forget to remove the shipping block prior to installing the door panel. If you're using the optional grooved T111 panels, be sure to remove the shipping protection for the lap edge. Starting flush at one corner, set your first wall panel, aligning the inside edge of the wall with the chalk line. Secure the bottom of the wall to the floor with 16D nails or 3-inch screws, making sure to fasten securely through the floor sheathing to the rim and floor joists. Continue to add wall sections in this manner while fastening the wall panels together vertically with temporary clamps, and then 10D nails or 2.5-inch screws in staggered rows every 12 inches. If you're using optional grooved T111 panels, have someone check the outside to be sure the grooves are lining up before you nail the panels together. Level and temporarily brace the wall panels with 2x4s as needed. This is a very important step and makes the rest of the cabin construction easy if the walls are plumb and level. Do not nail the seam off yet. That happens after the top plate is in place. At this point, it is possible to work from either or both ends, but be sure to finish in a corner. When attaching the last 2 panels together, do not pin the bottom plates. The fit will be very tight and you will need a little wiggle room, or a big hammer, to slide the panels together. Once they're in place, clamp and nail together as before. After all the wall panels have been installed, install a 2x6 top plate overlapping adjoining walls. The very top plate aligns and ties the panels together. Be sure it laps over the corner panels' seams. Fasten top plates with a minimum 10D nails or 2.5-inch screws over each wall stud location all the way around the walls. Next, plumb and brace corners and walls with temporary 2x4 braces. Use a string line on the inside of the walls to check for accuracy. Once walls are plumb, vertically level, and square, fasten off all sheathing panel edges with 8D nails or 2.5-inch screws 6 inches on center. If your kit has T111 siding, use 8D galvanized nails or exterior screws. Starting from one end of the building, mark and lay out trusses 24 inches on center. To prevent the first truss from falling off the gable end, fasten a couple of keepers sticking up from the gable end wall. Add a 7/16" spacer to account for the sheathing to be put on the gable ends later. The edge protectors from the groove panels works well. Use Simpson A35S strong ties with 1 1/4-inch Tico nails to secure the truss to the top plate. As trusses are secured into place and installed, use the Simpson Truss Spacer Bracer, TSB 2-24, and set on one truss to the next. Use one on each side of the peak about halfway down and one on the bottom cord in the center. Once attached, they remain in place and you may sheet right over them. Use Simpson H2.5S strong ties with 1 1/4-inch Tico nails to secure the truss to the top plate. Once the trusses are in place, it's time to sheathe the gable ends. Measure and cut the first gable end sheet, being careful to line up the grooves if you're using the optional T111. Note that the sheets do not need to go all the way to the end of the truss. You can fill those areas in with smaller cut pieces after the main portion is done. If you're going to be using gable end vent for ventilation, mark your cuts under the peak where you want it to go. Caulk the vent in place. Roof panels will run 8 inches beyond the truss and will need supporting blocks to be installed. For an 8-inch overhang, you need to subtract 1/2 inch for the siding and another 1 inch for your trim, which equals 6.5-inch blocks. Place as many as you'd like along the gable ends, but use at least one at the top and one down towards the eave as a minimum. To figure the fascia angle cut, measure from the outside of the eave to the center of the peak. The fascia cut should be 23 degrees. Start your eave 3 trusses in from the gable. Measure from the center of that truss out the other way to finish the eave run in the same fashion. Your eave and fascia should line up. Now it's time to lay down the roof sheathing. Start by measuring from the center line of the third truss in from the end to the outside of your fascia, then cut a sheet of OSB to that length. Bring the factory edge of the OSB even with the center line of the third truss in from the end. The eave will help hold it up on the roof. Run full sheets past the opposite fascia, mark, and cut the last one off flush. Stagger the sheathing joints on the next run. Rip a sheet into 2-foot by 8-foot pieces to finish the last run at the peak. Repeat on the other side. Before you install the door, be sure to lay down a generous bead of GE Max 3500 window and door caulk on the top and each side of the doorway opening. At this point, do not put any caulk on the floor threshold section. Make sure the threshold is clean and free of dirt and sawdust. Now place the door into the opening and have someone hold the door at an angle so you can lay a generous bead of caulk under the door threshold to ensure a good air seal. Once the door is in place, level from the inside and secure door at the bottom outside casing with 2.5-inch galvanized screws. Place 3 sets of shims on each side of the door, placing shims at the hinges on one side of the jamb and at the same level on the opposite side. Next, secure the door with 2.5-inch galvanized screws at each shim location, making sure to drive the screw through the shims for a secured door placement. You can hide the screws behind the weather stripping for a clean install. Now, finish off securing the door with 2.5-inch screws about 18 inches apart all around the outside door casing. Finally, remove excess door caulk from around the door casing for a clean and attractive door installation. The window installation is very similar and will start with a generous bead of the supplied door and window caulking around the window opening. Place the window from the outside and level with shims at the bottom of the inside of the window. Once level, secure the window with 1.25-inch galvanized screws. To finish, cut the top and bottom trim pieces to length and secure so they are flush on each side of the window. Measure for the side trim pieces from the top of the trim to the bottom of the trim and secure with 8D nails. For the soffit, start by measuring each end of the overhang and cut a 1x1 to make a stop at each gable end truss. Cut the 1x6 and the 1x8 soffit boards to length, making sure to measure each side to compensate for any variations. Then pin the 1x8 in place, making sure not to get too close to the edge so you can slide your aluminum vent under the edge of the 1x8. Once you slide the vent into place, tack it in to secure as shown here. Next, measure the remaining space and rip the 1x6 to fit. Once tacked into place, finish securing all of the soffit material at each truss with 8D nails. Now repeat on the other side of the cabin.